Hello and welcome to the Indo GAA podcast. And as the league has started, we had one man go out and exit stage left. Our good friend Eddie Brennan has gone to, I don't know if you call it the dark side or the bright side, but he's involved with Kilkenny now. And we said, what better way to replace one pacey corner forward than bring in another one? And we're delighted to have three-time All-Ireland winner with Limerick, Pat Ryan, on board for the year. Pat, how are you doing?
Good. Thanks a million. Great to be here now with in the big leagues, we call it.
The big leagues, yeah. Well, it's like this. We have Mullane in a van. We had Ned in the shed. Now we've Mullane in a van and Pat in the flat. That's what we're going to call it for the year ahead. But great to have you on board, Pat. Super to have you on board.
Yeah, fair play, Pat. We're delighted to have you on board. Don't worry, Pat. We'll ease you into it now. You're nice and relaxed. First question I want to ask you, Pat. What's gone wrong? Why ain't Seamus Flanagan on the Limerick panel?
By God. Hey, we might get to that later.
We'll keep that for another day.
Mull goes in 2 footed straight away. Wouldn't be like him.
No, genuinely, we're delighted to have you, Pat.
Thanks a million, John. Yeah.
Anything goes on this pod, so feel free to say whatever you want. The viewers, the listeners, they're up for the crack, and we maintain that we'll continue to give them the crack. So we've lost a big fish in. A big fish in Eddie. You have big shoes to fill, but we've no doubt you'll fill those shoes. So you're very welcome, Pat.
Yeah, should be a bit of crack in it.
Yeah, boys, I'll throw a left field one at you straight away. I had an absolute nightmare getting in here today. I was flooded on one side of me, I was flooded on the other side, and a tree down somewhere else. I had a crash somewhere else. It took me 45 minutes to get 5 minutes away from my house. I eventually got here. We had to put the show back a few minutes. Mull, I'll start with you, because you always love talking about the logistical problems that Waterford had when it came to Croke Park. Give me a bad travel story going to a game, or sometime you ended up late, or some disaster that happened during your playing days.
Jesus, I've pictures coming down from Dublin and outside our depot up in Palmerston, in Dublin, and I'm kind of reminding lads, for a lot of people living in the west of Ireland, that's a puddle for an awful lot of people living in the west of Ireland. So don't be getting overexcited down the east side, in contrast to what they have to live with nearly every week on the west coast. Pat will tell you that, but. Yeah, travel logistics. I mean, I suppose we've had a couple over the years, buses breaking down.
Going to Croke Park to play a Railway Cup, Mull. Going to Croke Park to play a Railway Cup with Tony Brown.
I suppose the other one then was the airplane. We were due to fly up the morning of the 2004 All-Ireland semi-final against Kilkenny, and we kind of get wind that morning that... there ain't going to be any flight going out from Waterford Airport, so we kind of had to travel, rearrange our travel arrangements, and we had to get the train up. So, yeah, as I touched on before, we could never get the logistics right in going to Croke Park, and thankfully the motorway came along, but the motorway came along. It was probably too late for the team, the team that we played in the noughties. We could have done with the motorway back in the noughties, but...
hey, quick one more. Give me your self-inflicted traffic problem in Dublin that time. On the way to the Railway Cup. Michael Ryan was managing Munster at the time, I think.
Yeah, so look, we've told that story before. I mean, with the one where all the cars are lined up in traffic, and myself and Brown, and it was actually my wife Stephanie was driving, and two of us, and we were still stuck. Well, we believed we were still stuck in traffic for the best part of a half an hour, 40 minutes, and lo and behold, we found out that we were stuck in a line of parked cars. But yeah, that's one of many. Yourself, Pat, have you had any over the years? No.
I remember there was one that sticks out for me, and it was kind of self-inflicted as well. That it was myself and two other teammates. We were heading to a training session in maybe November, December. This is going back to 2017 maybe, and it was one of those training sessions now where there was a weather warning out, and there was snow and sleet and rain, and it was the kind of weather that every match would always be called off, but a training session would never be called off.
Yeah.
And when we were talking this morning about coming in, we had a slight, when I say a slight tip now, we had a very, very slight tip into the ditch, right? Myself and my two teammates. Now, very, very slight now.
I love the way Mully's not naming his teammates already.
Right? And we said, we'd be glass half full kind of fellas, and we said, you know what? We'll ring Kylie and we'll say, you know, we're in the ditch. And sure, he might just say, Jesus, lads, you know, it's only November. At least we might miss training over being in the ditch, or that kind of way. And we rang him and we said, John Joe, the ice on the road here, we're after just sliding in a bit. And he said, oh no, don't worry, we won't start training without you. We'll wait till you get here, he said. So that was it then, basically. We said, oh shit, we're not getting any bit of time off training. And we got there then and everyone was waiting for us and we still had to do all the training. And it was one of those real hard slugging nights, you know.
The tone was set from fairly early there, Pat.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, sure. I remember another time below having bad weather. We were training below, and really, really bad kind of sleet and snow coming down. And John brought us in, and he said, "Look, lads, the weather is just—it's too hard coming down there, lads. We can't hurl it." We were like, "Yes." He's about to tell us go into the dressing room. He said, "Lads, put the hurleys and balls down." He says, "We just have to do running." He said, "You know."
Jeez, I'll never forget the one. It was another Railway Cup. I was myself. Dalo was actually manager of the Railway Cup back in 2015.
I heard about this. I heard about this before. You went. An awful tear happened. And no Railway Cup played. Is that it?
There was no Railway Cup, and I remember the weather warning up in Galway. Remember that lady from the weather, the one from RT. She was, you know, don't go outside your door or don't take
any unnecessary journeys.
Any unnecessary risks. And we were due to play Connacht on the Saturday, and I remember, I think myself and Noel Connors were going up in the car and saying, like, the game was never going to go ahead. And Dalo being Dalo, like, you know, we got as far as Clonmel and Ring and Ed and saying, so keep coming, the match ain't off yet, the match hasn't been pulled yet. We got as far as Clare, I think. Keep coming, Tipperary town. And I was saying to my to Noel in the car, saying, like, Jesus Christ, like, how are you going to even get up there as far as Limerick, let alone Galway? We made it as far as Limerick anyway, and the match got pulled. It was never going to go ahead. This was at about 10 o'clock in the morning. I said, Dalo being Dalo, so look, come on up. He said, so look, the rooms are booked, and, you know, he said, so we'll have an all-team bonding day. So we got up and 12 o'clock, and, you know, I think the Cork boys were up there, and Limerick lads, and Jim Bob Ryan. Remember Jim Bob, great character. And we were all up there. We had the breakfast, and it was, Jesus, I think it was in around the 5th of December or something along the 5th or the last week in November. And everyone was kind of waiting to see, well, who's going to go up and have the first point. And I think it was Jim Bob got up and he said, Jesus Christ, he said, this is like Christmas has come early. He said, when do we ever get an opportunity like this? He said, you know, where we can have a little bonding day, have a couple of pints, and the rooms are booked. And by God, did we have a great day. Jeez, one of the best days that I ever had now, you know, but all the lads from...
John, did all the players stay, or did one of the county's players go home?
I can't remember. Jeez, all I can remember is 2 o'clock at the end of the night, and I was with Pádraig Maher, and geez, we had a great night, and the Railway Cup got rearranged, and I think it was...
I'd say that it wasn't the only thing that was rearranged.
Yeah, but Jesus, that was one of the classics. Yeah, but Dalo, yeah, keep coming, lads. Yeah, I was saying to me, oh man, like, how are we even going to get up there? But we ended up having a great night. Yeah,
You could just see Dale rubbing the hands together. He knew what was coming as well. He's
yeah. And you know how strict Galway is, like, you know, and a group of lads, like, you know, and it's kind of like, Jesus, there was 1 or 2 establishments there we got. We didn't last too long, and I'll tell you that.
Well, that's the Ailey's like the Dingle boys below, inviting 5 panels down to their own pubs.
Lads, that's something else.
Covering the cost for the year.
Yeah, that is. They might have missed out on a few tourists last week, but by James, they made up for it there. It's some occasion though to have the 6 trophies there, and imagine the bonds that'll be formed. Like, not being smart, I don't drink, but when you throw a bit of liquor between boys, the stories and the crack and the relationships and camaraderie between those 6 squads forevermore now after that. I thought that was deadly.
Hey, but it'd take a cute Kerry Hoare to kind of do it, wouldn't it? Like, come on down to my pub, lads, and I'll get loads of exposure. And I'll take your money.
No, that's the first of many segues, boys. But always, never feel that you can't just go off in a different direction. Because me and Mull veer, it's like Spaghetti Junction over in England. We veer off in all sorts of different directions at different times. But lads, loads of hurling to talk about. And Jiz, it was great to have the leagues back. And some real good action, some really like highlight reel moments at different stages. And even thinking about like Jason Rabbitt's flick up the other night, and then Cathal O'Reilly's flick like 4 or 5 seconds later. We'll start with that game, and we go to you, Pat. Like, it looks like Tipp have fair riches now, doesn't it? And even listening to Liam Cattle talking about they're carrying a 43-man panel at the minute, which is obviously huge expense with it. And they actually carried Darren McCarthy and a few more in 2024, just so they would get exposure of what an inter-county environment is like. And then you see what he did in 2025, and they've got lots of lads involved this year, and hope they probably won't bear fruit this year, but it will bear fruit in time. That was a good start for Tipp. Plenty of new players involved. I mentioned O'Reilly, Josh Keller come in, Paddy McCormack got time. Plenty of other players got time as well. It looks like they've a fair arsenal of players assembled.
They have, yeah. And I suppose one thing I noticed last week when they put out their panel as well, there was 13 or 14 newcomers onto this year's panel that have no All-Ireland medal. And, you know, I was lucky enough to be involved with a good few panels, and that changed over after winning that Ireland medal. And it was always fierce important, and management would have spoke about how important it was to get new players in. But I'd say, you know, we might have never got more than 6 or 7 in, you know, to come onto the panel for next year. So they're after getting 13 now. I know it might be trimmed down coming into the league, but they have a lot of underage one. You know, I heard Don Logue saying it the other night on the Sunday game. You know, they've last 3 Harty Cups, won Tipperary schools, another final last, you know, a couple of they're going for 3 in a row under 20 Munsters this year. You know, Cathal O'Reilly, I thought Cathal O'Reilly was probably my second man of the match the other night. Yeah. After Jake Morris, who was brilliant. You know, he's only under 19. He was a captain. He was the minor captain in 2024. So, you know, he's under 20 again next year. Oisin O'Donoghue, who's under 20 this year.
Jack Leamy, so, and a few more. Like
a lot of young players there. You know, Paddy McCormack, Oisin O'Donoghue, Darren McCarthy,
Stephen Tobin.
You know, yeah, really a lot of really good young players now, and it was a good game. I was at it now, but it was, I don't know if you could tell on the television, it just lashed rain for the 2 hours, we'll say, in and around the game. It just never stopped. So it was a hard night for hurling. You know, the pitch was a little bit dug up. You know, it's so early in the year, January, obviously. But in fairness to Galway could have easily won that game as well. You know, there was a lot of positivities from Galway as well. I thought, you know, they a couple of newcomers and a lot of new forwards, and I thought their half forward line played really, really well. You know, Neary, Burke, and Fleming. They got 1-8 from play between them, and just looking across the games, just to put that into perspective, you know, the Kilkenny starting 6 forwards against Offaly at home on a better day on Sunday got 7 points in play. Yeah, between them. The half forward line for Cork against Waterford in the game they won well got 8 points. You know, the Galway half forward line got 1-8 from play. And a few of them nearly all hit 1 or 2 wides as well. You know, they had 14 wides, they had twice as many as Tipp. So definitely positives for Galway there. But overall, Tipp, it was a kind of win that you, when you're an All-Ireland champion, you nearly expect. They nearly didn't play that well for a lot of it. And then when it came to the championship rounds, that last 10 or 15 minutes, they just kind of turned the key a small bit and got their win, you know.
Mull, just a quick one on Tipp. I could be wrong here, but I'm just reading into between the lines of the type of character Liam Cattle is. I think he'd kind of love a bit of a kick in the arse and a defeat, and just to get them. Now, I think things can be going too well after winning Ireland sometimes, and you can think that you don't have any issues or gaps that need plugged or anything like that. Now, they probably will get a bit of an eye-opener at some stage during the league, but that type of thing is probably no harm either, because things are nearly a little bit too rosy at the minute. It's nearly kind of too positive in a way, or am I way off the mark?
Yeah, and I suppose, look, he was probably a bit cautious probably last year in what way, for all the world, what way he was going to approach it off the back of, you know, a poor 2024. So he probably didn't want to go gung-ho on lads, and he was probably kind of mindful in what way the approach was, in what way he should approach it. And I suppose he was kind of probably mindful of the outside noise, you know, considering, you know, off the back of the 2 previous years. But now he's in a fabulous position. I mean, you look at the position he's in now, they're All-Ireland champions. You know, as you just touched on, the array of talents that they have coming right now and within the next couple of years. He's young lads that are chomping at the bit, mad to get into that squad, mad to get into that team. And as we just touched on last week, he will be reminding lads that, you know, don't go into relax mode, lads. Don't, you know, 2025 is gone. And as I said last week, you know, if the likes of Cathal O'Reilly, he'll give lads an opportunity. Yeah. And he'll be looking for lads to put their hand up and say, you know what, Liam, I want to be in your squad and I want to be in your team.
Just on that, Mull, even Robert Doyle pulling up the other night, like, no matter what way his hamstring is, it's at least 4 to 6 weeks. So somebody else is going to get a chance for the next 3 or 4 games. And if they just say O'Reilly plays well, like, he'll keep that spot until something happens that he's not in that spot anymore. Do you know what I mean? Cahill will give these boys chances, and like John McGrath's hurler of the year. Will John McGrath start every championship game for Tipp this year? I'm not so sure. Like, he can afford. He's a ruthless man, and he can afford to be ruthless.
And look, I think he's the type of manager that he'll be loyal for he'll go with the loyalty for 1 or 2 games, but he doesn't strike me as the manager that will stay loyal for a couple of games if that specific player or players aren't performing. And that's why he'll keep them all on their toes, and he has that kind of, touch of Cody about him that, he will be ruthless when he has to be ruthless. But as you just touched on, if you were to ask Liam Cahill and his management team that, would they like a defeat here and there throughout the course of the league where he has to stick to beat his team with, I would say most definitely yes. But I do like, and again, I touched on last week, and you look at Brian O'Mara's interview after the match, they're going after every match. They want to win the league. And I think if you're a Tipperary supporter and you're hearing your manager and your players express a massive interest in going after the league, you have to be very, very excited. And I think even from the outside looking in, I think it's great to see that we're seeing managers and players now say, you know what, we're going after this year's league, and we want to carry that form into the championship come late April.
When you look at that interview after, I knew Brian O'Mara was all there physically, but by Jays, he is a rock of a man. He is a bull of a man.
But one thing that was evident the weekend, and a touch on Pat, and how Limerick bulked up, I wouldn't say overnight, but in the space of 12 to 18 months from, say, 2017 to, mid-2019, they are after bulking up a good bit, Michael. That is clearly evident by the appearance of a lot of them on Saturday night,
Pat, you just mentioned about some of the Galway lads there. Like, from me, O'Donoghue's point of view, I think even the commentary after the game was that Galway probably got more out of the game than Tipperary in many ways, because you look at Killian Trayers coming in, you look at Rory Burke coming in, you look at Jason Rabbit, you look at Aaron Nyland, you look at Neary coming in. Loads of new faces who acquitted themselves really well. Like Galway have like a hell of a lot of youth, and they're going to, I'd say Micheál Donoghue and Franny Ford and Noel Larkin and the boys are going to give them their chance in the league. They have to build a new team. They'd be delighted with what they got out of the other night. Like, lads, it wasn't perfect, but lads at different stages show that they're up to that level.
Yeah, definitely. That Killian Trayers, the 6, who actually played majority of the game full back, he looks like a really good player now. Consistently really good in the air the other night. Everything that came in high, he won it. Everything that came in high, So I don't know whether they played him at fullback even though he was wearing 6, like I said, for majority. They seem to have kind of, I won't say an obsession in Galway, but always wanting to move Dottie Burke out to 6 or somewhere out the field. I don't really get that all the time because, he won 4 All-Stars fullback, and it just feels like over the last 3 or 4 years, it's almost like, how can we get this guy out the field?
Is that partly, Pat, to do with that they know he's not going to be around forever and they need to find a new fullback? Or if he's just there, would you just play him fullback and leave him there?
Yeah, but you need to find a new fullback if you don't have a 6.
Yeah.
Which, you're cutting off, half to suit the other. Like, he was playing 6 well. Now, look, he's a great player, and like I said, they done good scoring their night. They were playing well without a lot of fellas come back into the team. Obviously, Colin Mannion, right, he came on. But, come back into the team, Conor Whelan, Brian Concannon, these fellas.
Pádraig wasn't he? Wasn't Pádraig Mannion absolutely bursting out of his skin?
Played really well. And like that now, when off the ball, he was given a bit of niggle too, even in the first half, to Jake Morris. Which is, that's what you want. As John was saying there, like, sometimes, do you listen to managers or do you listen to players? Like, the interview John mentioned tonight, and Joe Ormond said the same. He said, like, we've no league medal. Tipp have no league medal since 2008. So trust me, like, every player, as far as I'm concerned, in every team wants to win the league. Now, some managers might be different because, their job isn't to play and their job is to manage throughout the year and what their goals there. But the players want to play, and the players want to win the league. I've no doubt in my mind about that. And you could see that in small pockets the other night, like Pádraig Mannion there. You know, I think he's an unbelievable player. I think he's been a great player for so many years. I think over the last 10 years, he's one of the best wing backs in the country, you know. And then if they can get a few more in, now, but the big thing with Galway is, look, and I wouldn't blame them the other night, they had very poor support the other night, right? Which is fine. You know, it was a really bad night. You're still talking about the last weekend in January. They kind of even, if you went back last year, Mick, when the first round against, in April against Kilkenny, that was a poor turnout to travel down to Dublin Park. I'm not coming down to sports because at the same time, you know, building they'll come. It's very important that the Galway players give them something to row in behind, or they need to pull off maybe a win that was unexpected somewhere along the line. Or the other night is a great performance, and why couldn't it be this weekend? You know, that you could catch Cork at home, like Cork, the hurling Cork had to do last week against Waterford in terms of just in terms of the pitch and the weather was exceptional. You know what I mean, for Cork, and Ben O'Connor even said they played a 15 and 15 the week before in it. Now they're going up to Salt Hill, which is just you know, the windy city, like, you know, it's a horrible place to go. That and Wexford Park are two really hard places to go, and sometimes they just need to give the Galway public something. I know it's a new team, and I know there might be that word transition that people use that are in it, but they need something. They need to grab a big performance from somewhere and maybe take down a Cork or a Limerick. They were close maybe with Tipp the other night. You know, something like that could really galvanise it.
John, are Galway in a similar spot as Tipp were in 12 months ago? Like, we were talking 12 months ago, Tipp were very poorly supported, outnumbered, 8 or 9 to 1 when they played Cork in that final Munster round robin game in Thurles. Then all of a sudden they went to Galway in that league game. They got a big win, loads of new faces, some faces even that we haven't even seen since and have kind of went off the radar. But they had a really good lead, got the support behind them, and then it built into the summer. Galway is something similar. Like, I remember I said it to you I was chatting to Cyril Farrell a couple of weeks ago, and I could feel the excitement bubbling off him, and I can't wait to see his Laker game later in the week, by the way, because there'll be clips flying around and all the old sayings from the Sunday game. But I could feel the excitement bubbling off him, and the other night while they didn't win, you can kind of maybe see that kind of the wheel is turning again, and all these boys are going to get their chances, and it's just a matter of lads taking them now.
Yeah, well, look, if I'm going to defend Galway supporters, I mean, the performances the last year or two probably don't warrant, probably doesn't warrant, for supporters to come out and keep following in large numbers. And I suppose an injection of youth, as you just touched on there, that gets supporters excited, and I would fully believe that maybe Saturday night against Cork, I think you'll see plenty of bums and seats in Salt Hill on Saturday night. And, we've seen it time and time again. You just touched on there with Tipperary. You even go back to when Limerick had the success under Kiley, and Pat was part of that setup. He injected an awful lot of newcomers as well. Waterford back in, when Austin and Ty de Burke and Bennett and all them came along, that got supporters excited. Even go back to last year, Waterford winning the minor, Waterford supporters now, they're probably, they're kind of thinking, shall I go or shall I stay at home? But, a little sprinkle of youth and exciting talent gets supporters excited, and it can change. It can quickly change, as you well know, Verney.
Look at my own county, Mulcher. Look at my own county.
Your own county. Look at Tipp last year, and as Pat alluded to there, if they could pick up one or two big results in the league campaign, i.e. maybe against the top sides, maybe a Kilkenny. Or why not Cork Saturday night? That would increase the air of excitement even more, and it would entice supporters to say, well, you know what? Rather than staying at home, I'm going to go and watch these boys because I like what I see.
Yeah.
John, we had a good example of that in 2018. We went up to Salt Hill in the last. We were in Division 1B, and we went up to Salt Hill in the last game, and they were actually current All-Ireland champions. They were 9 points up at half time. We were actually missing. Pierce got to the Club All-Ireland final that year against Coola. It was still on. Patrick's Day. So we were missing, I think, maybe 6 players from the Napier panel, and a lot of them would have been, huge players for us. They were missing throughout the whole league campaign. And it fellas like myself and other fellas, that would have been further down because the 6 Napier lads were out, got game time, and then that day against above in Salt Hill against Galway, we managed to come back and get a win. And Everton, so many times that year, and I don't like to go on, but so many times that year, that game was referenced more than even, we'll say, the first round of championship against Tipp that we won, even when we were outsiders for that game. But it was a lot of the reference coming back to that league game away against Galway above in Salt Hill, that down numbers, down at half time, you got this big result with John says, with some young and exciting players and a young team. So when some people dismiss the league and they say, it's just a league, there's nothing to it. That's just so far from the truth for some teams that need it. Like Tipp got what they needed last year from it. Cork did as well. You're talking about Galway, they'd be hoping to get something like that. I know for a fact if we didn't do that day in 2018, things could have been so different,
Yeah, it's
and look, that is one game to be really excited about the weekend. And it's televised on RTE. Cork and Galway. We'll find out an awful lot more about Galway. I'm sure Micheál Donoghue, he'll be anxious to build on last week's performance. And I think, to be fair to him, I don't think the scoreline was a true reflection. Like as I touched on there Sunday, if you wanted at that match, you'd say, "Oh Jesus, Tipp, they were 5-point winners," but it wasn't a 5-point game. It wasn't anyway a 5-point game. And we'll find out an awful lot more about Cork and how good this Cork team are Saturday night, because they will be tested in Salt Hill in contrast to last Sunday against Waterford. And I think, to be fair, we'll just touch on that now. I think it was a nice game for Ben O'Connor to start off on.
Do you think so?
I do, because realistically, were Waterford ever going to win the match? They weren't, Michael, considering the personnel they were down. So I think it was a perfect match.
Yeah.
I
don't know. I don't think he wants those type of games. I don't think he wants those. It was non-contact hurling. Like, he learned nothing.
Well, he mightn't want those type of games going forward for the remainder of the league. But in regards, getting that monkey off the back, getting the game out of the way, getting a win under your belt, clearly we can see that there is still a big draw for this Cork team, considering the amount of people that turned up Sunday, 22,000 people.
Savage, yeah.
But in regards, getting off to a good start, albeit, the standard of opposition wasn't what he probably expected on Sunday, he will be delighted to get off to a winning start and to get that match out of the way. And it's a box ticked now where he can push on for the remainder of the league and go up Saturday night and have a right call off a Galway.
Do you think we learned much about Cork, Pat? I think it was 3-10 from their full forward line. Declan Dalton inside, William Buckley, right good debut. It was a perfect kind of game to debut in, really, because I don't know, whatever it was with Waterford, particularly early on, they'd no interest in any contact, to be honest with you. Do you think Ben O'Connor would have learned much, Pat? Or I personally think he needs loads of arm wrestles and loads of character tests throughout the league and to get them kind of steeled and ready. What do you think?
Look, to be honest, I don't think they did learn much from it. It's not because everybody in the country knows that Cork are a really good hurling team. They've been in the last 2 All-Ireland finals. They won the league last year, won the Munster final last year. The big team of Cork, and you kind of not feel from one way, but even if they win every game like that, right up until either a Munster, not even a Munster final, maybe a knockout game this year, that real test and that pressure of knockout hurling and getting over the line when needs must, they won't be able to do anything right for the year. It doesn't matter if they win every game by 10 points until they get to that, get themselves out of Munster, whether if they have to win a knockout game in the last, maybe, 4th round of Munster or 3rd round of Munster, or after that, whether it is up the road in Croke Park, that's when their real test will come as players, and then people talk about Ben O'Connor, but he's still going to be a lot of the same players that have lost 2 or 3 finals, and the scar tissue could be there. So that doesn't go until they win. Obviously, if he can add in new fellas like William Buckley, these fellas, that would be great. And some of the new fellas that have been added in over the last 2 or 3 years, like the Brian Hayeses, the Connollys, they obviously have gotten Cork a lot better than where they were 3 years ago, and even the fact that they had been in All-Ireland in 2021 and stuff like that. So. One thing about him, the aerial ability in the half-back line looked really good the last day. If that's something that they could get better at this year, that's like, it's such, even watching a game, it's so great to see. Like, they just seem to catch every high ball that Waterford came down with in the first 10 or 15 minutes. The only thing about Waterford is Cork seemed to drop back. They were allowing Waterford to go short. And when you're allowing a team to go short, if the next thing they do straight away, which I thought Waterford did an awful lot, as soon as it went short to the full back line, they just went long again. So when a team is letting you go short and you just go along with that first ball you get, it almost tells the team, lads, they're not able to go short. You know what I mean? Because if a team goes short and they're able to walk the ball out, the ball goes to 4, next thing he zips it to 6, and 6 goes to 7 to 8 or to 9 or 12 comes there, then the Cork boys come back out. But Cork just seemed to have them figured out incredibly early the last of that. Look, lads, Billy Nolan is either going to go really long or one of the full back line is going to go really long. So let's all drop back and we're just working from there. So look, Waterford were poor the other day. You're not going to dismiss them too early yet. There's a lot of new players playing, but I don't think you'll learn an awful lot from Cork the other day now, to be honest.
Okay.
Well, I was down there, and the first 15 minutes, albeit Waterford were very, very standoffish now, extremely standoffish. I mean, there was a couple of times where Cork players were nearly allowed, plant the feet, get the head up, and plant the feet and even pick off a score. But for the first 15 minutes, you wouldn't have seen it on the TV screens. Their movement up top was incredible. They were just moving everywhere. Buckley was going, then you had Healy was going. It was like they were moving. They had that kind of freedom to go wherever they want. And one thing that I really picked up on, when Jamie Barron was number 11, Downey didn't follow. So say Barron would come out to midfield, so then Fitzgibbon would pick up Barron, and Downey would sit back in the D, and at times then they'd rotate it. Then Niall O'Leary, then he would come out and pick up Barron if Fitzgibbon wanted around Barron. But at all times, Downey sat back in the pocket, and I just thought it was very, very interesting. But look, he'll be delighted. Look, from a Waterford point of view, personally, I think there's an awful lot of people getting too excited early doors in regards, knocking, I wouldn't say knocking Peter Queally or starting to doubt things. I mean, at the end of the day, we had 6 or 7 lads that were making their debut. I mean, as we touched on before, it's extremely hard to make your debut when you don't have 10 or 11 regulars around you. You contrast to Buckley, where he had 10 players who played in the All Ireland. Then you throw in Cormac O'Brien. He played in the Munster final last year. Brian Roach came on as well. So it's an awful lot easier for the likes of William Buckley to go and make an expression on Ben O'Connor when you have those type of bodies around you, in contrast to some of the Waterford players who they probably struggle. But I wouldn't knock these lads, because these lads are training so hard since October, and I wouldn't dismiss any of these lads, because a lot of these lads could still end up being the future for Waterford hurling. And I think a lot of these players should be given an opportunity when the likes of the Ballygunner lads come back, when the likes of Ty de Burke comes back, when the likes of Stephen Bennett comes back, when Caelan Lyons is fully fit, when Jack Fagan is available. So, and look, a big plus for Waterford the weekend was having Caelan Lyons back on the pitch. And as I touched on last week, Michael, I did say it, there should be no air of panic amongst Waterford supporters, because realistically, it was always going to be a struggle early doors. We were always going to struggle going down to Cork last weekend. And it's probably not going to get any better the weekend, because we have the Green Machine coming to town now. So are we going to, realistically, with the personnel that we are down, are we going to beat Limerick the weekend? I can't see it, but what I would like to see is and I think Peter Queally will be banging the drum. He'll want to see a more battle-hardened performance, and he'll want to see lads roll up the sleeves and grind the teeth even more. And I think what is evident now is that coming off the weekend, we need everybody throwing the shoulder to the wheel, when they are back. And look, I don't know where Ozzy's at, or is Ozzy in, or is he out? I'm hearing that he's gone away. He's doing his own training program, and I won't be dismissing Austin Gleeson, even for 1 minute. You people out there saying, "Oh, Jesus, Austin Gleeson, he's gone." I think going off of last Sunday, we need everyone, and even if it's an 80% or a 90% Austin Gleeson, I think we still need him. You know.
Yeah. Just last point on Cork and everything I've heard from Ben O'Connor. Like, it's not like he's coming in and they're in rag order. Like, I think it's like, it's tweaks, it's minor tweaks, and it's really going after the mental aspect, I think, and really stealing them. But like, I don't think they're going to play that much different to how Cork played last year. Like, why would you? You're ripping up a script that nearly got them to the promised land within a half. So I think it's just a bit of fine tuning there. I think he has a lot of the tools, and it's just going to be a matter of fine tuning, and it's going to be fascinating to follow them over this season. The other 1A game, lads, I think it was a little bit of a missed opportunity for Offaly. They lost by 4 points down Nolan Park. I think it finished 20 points to 16. I don't know if you saw much of this, Pat. Like, Kilkenny were a shook enough outfit, lads, on paper, and a lot of new faces thrown in. You know, had Offaly had everyone available to them, and this is the nature of it. Charlie Mitchell is out for the foreseeable a couple of months. Kieran Burke, last year's captain, is out. Turrigainen might be back this weekend. Rory Kelly might be back this weekend for Tipp. But like, I don't know, this was an opportunity for Offaly against a half-strength Kilkenny team, and unfortunately they weren't able to get a result, and it's not going to get any easier from here on in. They're playing Tipperary in Tullamore at the weekend, a Tipperary team that beat them 7-38 to 3-18 the last time they played in Tullamore a couple of years ago. Probably going to be tough for Offaly, Pat, realistically, up in 1A, but a lot of young faces, a lot of under-20s thrown in there, and a lot of them acquitted themselves pretty well the other day.
Yeah, not a bad start now, in fairness. You know, you think you're going back 2 years ago to win Tipp beat them, you know, heavily in that game. A lot has changed for Offaly since, you know, they've come on a lot. And even you think maybe, I don't know when the last time they would have played Kilkenny in the league. They probably, you know, probably 4 points as you, and you're disappointed now that they nearly didn't get a result.
Yeah.
That shows where they're coming, you know. And look, I only saw the highlights like everyone else on Sunday, this game. I was talking to you last week, you mentioned about the goalie. He looks like a really good goalie. Liam Hoare, is it?
He's like a young Nicky Quaid. I tell you.
He pulled off. There was 2 saves looked like guaranteed goals, where it was, you know, he looks really good, you know. The old saying was, if you're a good goalkeeper and a good free taker, you know, you'll beat most teams. So they seem to have a serious goalkeeper there now. I wish, before we even get into the game, it's so funny, we're kind of spoiled, I think, and you know, things change so fast. We're spoiled in the club championship. If you're a member of a club or something, we'll say, and games in Kilkenny, you'll see every round in Kilkenny, literally 10 rounds. And then last weekend, then you just automatically think, I'd be able to see every game. And then you see one on RT and one on TG4. And then it's like, geez, why can't I just jump online here and stream this? Why don't I just give it to one of the streaming places instead of just going out so we could watch all the games? Like, I couldn't get over that Dublin and Clare wasn't the main game as well on the Sunday, more so than Cork and Waterford. No disrespect to them. I just thought the 2 biggest teams, 1B, in Ennis, was going to be a big game. But look, I think Offaly, like I said, it's a good sign that Offaly are disappointed that they didn't win. I had a competition thing with you. I had it down for a draw, so I expected big things from it as well. You know, they had a lot of their main forwards out playing, you know, Screeney, you know, Burke, Ravenhill, Dignan, you know, a lot of good players there. Kilkenny, I don't know, it's very, this time last year, I would have said about Tipperary that I would be straight up and honest now, I would have said, no, they haven't the hope of winning that Ireland this year. So I'm very apprehensive to say the same about Kilkenny this year, because you can never beat tradition, but it really doesn't look, Kilkenny, I don't know, it doesn't look like they have anything coming really strong behind them. Even the other day, the only 2 forwards to score more than a point from play was Owen Cody and Mossy Keown. Cody got 2, Mossy Keown got 3. It's the same, you know. I think
the difference, Pat, between you saying that about Tipperary last year, if we dug a bit deeper and we'd say there was plenty of success there. Do you know what I mean? And you don't think it's going to adapt to senior level that quickly. But when you look at, like I've said it several times, like, who was the last Kilkenny superstar? I remember growing up, and it was like, geez, Richie Hogan is coming, Richie Power is coming, TJ Reid even to a lesser extent, Cha is coming. All these lads, maybe it's probably Adrian Mullane, lads. It's probably the last lad where you're thinking this lad could come out of minor and be a big hit straight away. But those players aren't there in Kilkenny now at the minute, anyway.
They haven't even. But who's the last forward to even come in and start? Who's the last debutant forward? There's not even be a star just to come in and play as a forward. The forwards are the same forwards going back almost to, you know, not all the way back to 2019 now, but nearly, you know, the start of the 6 in a row in Leinster. And obviously, it's, you know, it's a sign of fierce consistency in them, and they're such an honest bunch that the 6 Leinster in a row is fantastic, but it would kill them that there's not an All-Ireland in at least that 6 in a row.
Yeah.
You know.
John, what did you make it? Like it was job done for Kilkenny. They got 2 points on the board. They got lots of new faces in. The likes of like David Barco was playing, lads, the other day. He's still in Cairns. I was kind of surprised at that. Like he's a busy enough schedule at the minute. But I don't know. Kilkenny haven't blown me away in a while, and the fact that they're missing Hugh Lawler, they need a new fullback. I love Mikey Carey as a player. I'm not sure. I'd be straight with you. I'm not sure is he. Ruthless enough to play full back. It takes it like he's a bomb forward kind of player. That's full back is a different position completely. They're looking at Dara Corkin at centre back. I think he's a very, very good player. He's going to have to be given plenty of time if that's where they're looking at him to be playing. Owen Cody coming out to play at centre forward. I'm just not sure. Mullane, I don't know when Adrian Mullen's going to be back. He's out for the foreseeable. TJ will be integrated back in at some stage during the league, but it's all the same names. There's very few new names and really establishing themselves.
Yeah, well, look, you know my stance on Kilkenny over the years that no matter who they put out, they'll always still be extremely difficult to beat. I mean, that was evident last year. They went and won the Leinster Championship again, and Tipperary, it took an Oisin O'Donoghue unbelievable goal and a stop from Robert Doyle to get over the line against them last year. So they'll always be difficult to beat. But I'd agree with Pat. That would be the worry that I would have, is that where is the next, Owen Cody coming from? Where is the next DJ Reid? And as he just touched on, that's the one thing for the remainder of this league that I'm going to cast my eyes on and say, well, look, who's going to be the forward or two that's going to go and say, right, put 1-3 on the board, 1-2 on the board, put 3 points on the board, put 4 points on the board. And, losing 2 big players like Hugh Lawler, and don't underestimate the loss of Billy Ryan.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just touching on it here about, that they have probably 5 or 6 forwards. If you mentioned Cody, Mossy, TJ. Look, TJ, naturally enough, is going to slow down. We don't know where Mullane is right now. He's probably, going to take a bit of time to come back. That's where someone like Billy Ryan, then, a lad who would pop up with 2 or 3 points, is going to be a colossal loss. And yeah, it will be very, very interesting to see, how they go throughout the course of the league. But putting Cody to an 11, I like the look of that. It just changes up the dynamic of our team. I don't know. I'd like to look at Mikey Carey a bit more as fullback. I wouldn't dismiss him just yet. And there, he's touch tight, he's pacey. You wouldn't get a whole lot off him. If he had a good towering centre back, sitting in front of him, I think he'd be okay. They're trying out Dara Corkin there. Still have some good players to come back. But yeah, look, they'll be Kilkenny. They'll be the Kilkenny of the last 6 or 7 years. Will they be good enough to go on and win an All-Ireland? I don't think they will, but they'll be extremely difficult to beat. Offaly were extremely unlucky. That fixture now in 2 weeks' time down at Welsh Park, it's going to be a massive game for both Offaly and Waterford. And I think both Offaly and Waterford will probably eye up that fixture and saying, well, right, this is our opportunity to get 2 points on the board, and then they'll go and target probably the last 2 or 3 games outside of the top 2 or 3, like your Limericks, your Corks, and your Tipperary's, where they might pick up another 2 points or possibly 4 points, which will be good enough to keep them up,
Yeah, well, Offaly and Waterford, obviously, they were the 2 teams that came up from 1B. Clare and Dublin are probably favourites at the minute, even though Dublin have a difficult passage now. Pat, I don't know how much you saw this, but I think that Dublin will see it as a bit of a missed opportunity. They did a lot of the hurling, were rocked by 2 goals in the first half. Owen O'Donnell kind of missed the ball, and David Reedy slipped in behind. O'Donnell's only back in county hurling now after being with the footballers last year. There's bound to be bits of mistakes like that. Duggan got a goal soon after, but Dublin bounced back really well. I've said it about Brian Hayes, lads, for a couple of years. I don't know if there's been a faster player. Like, I'm looking back at Cottle Nocton maybe for a faster hurler, and that's 15 years ago, and he has all the hurling to go with it. He got a brilliant goal in the second half. But I just, even like Tony Kelly been standing by himself, in the closing minutes of a game to get that goal that was basically the difference maker. Dublin are a little bit behind the 8 ball now, Pat. They're going to have to win every game now, basically, to get to the back to the 1B final. And it was something similar last year. The start was not great, and they were kind of chasing their tail thereafter, and Offaly had them on head to head. So for all the good hurling Dublin did, it was an unfortunate result for them.
Yeah, I still think they will get back there. Even remember Waterford last year, they kind of when they lost to Carlow.
Yeah.
They had a very inexperienced team out, and you're thinking, geez, is that their chance gone now of coming straight back up? So I do think Dublin will bounce back. I think Dublin are a good team. Obviously, a lot of that has gone off last year's. The last championship game I saw them against Limerick. They were obviously, it was a win for the ages. Probably the biggest upset in 20, 25 years anyway. One of the biggest. You mentioned about Brian Hayes there. Like, he got 5 points from play in that game last year, an Ireland quarter-final, huge game. He got 1-3 from play the other day. He's a brilliant player. Conor Burke.
Him just gliding away from lads when he gets the ball.
And hey, the lads touched on League Sunday. He's after bulking up.
Yeah.
He's after bulking up, and that is really going to stand to him going forward for the remainder of the league and the championship.
Yeah, he's a brilliant player. When fellas are that fast, and Jack O'Connor is kind of like that as well in Cork, that when they're so fast, they look like they're not even going fast.
Yeah.
They look like there's no kind of, they look like they're just gliding, as you said. And he is a brilliant, brilliant player. And, I expect big things from Dublin over the next couple of years.
How big, Pat? Off the record, you were telling me you do expect very big things.
Well, I do. I just think, look, foundations, different things. They have a very, very, very good club championship up there. And what I mean, you had Coola, who won All Ireland. You have Kilmacud Cokes, who were favourites after Coola, not Coola won the All Ireland a couple of years ago. Nafina won the All Ireland last year. Kilmacud Cokes were favourites to win the Dublin Championship after Nafina won the All Ireland. So that'll tell you the competition up there. Coola, obviously, are more further back. But even the county final this year, Luke and Sarsfields were I thought they were brilliant. They were really good. And I'm thinking, geez, that's even a third top class team above in the club championship. And it usually bodes well, And what I was saying to you the other day was my if you want to call it a wild card prediction, I just think Dublin will be in an All-Ireland final in the next 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
If they can get on top in Leinster that bit, which I just think, I think they have the ability to get on top by Leinster. What I mean by that is, can they win 2 of the next 3 Leinsters? That might sound stupid when they've only won 1 in the last, I don't know, whatever it is, 50 years.
Yeah.
I just think they can, though. I think if they could win a Leinster this year, win another one in the space of 2 or 3 years, that's your ticket to an All-Ireland semi-final. That's the golden goose ticket that they want, because if they get to an All-Ireland semi-final, they're avoiding the best team in Munster. I know people will say that the top 3 teams in Munster might probably be the top 3 teams in Ireland, but at least you're avoiding the best team in Munster on form if you get to the All-Ireland, or if you win Leinster and get to a semi-final. So that's kind of my wildcard prediction, that Dublin, we could see Dublin in an Ireland final in the next 1 to 3 years. I could be completely off from that.
We like lads coming in making predictions like that, Mull, in fairness, don't we?
Yeah, well, look, I called it last week, and look, geez, people are saying, "Oh, geez, it's only January and making predictions." But I'm throwing it out there. I think they'll win Leinster this year. I think they have a great chance of winning Leinster this year, barring injuries. I think Leinster is there from this year, and I think I really, really like the manager. I think both Galway and Dublin, as I touched on last week, I'm really excited what's going to unfold between both those setups this year. But I think both those teams, both Galway and Dublin, will be eyeing up a Leinster championship this year. And look, Offaly could come into the mix. But yeah, look, I'd agree with Pat. I think it's probably disappointing that game wasn't on televised the weekend. And when I seen both sides being named on Friday, I said, wow, Jesus, Clare are going after this, and Dublin are going after it. And look, you only had to listen to Brian Lohan interview after the match. He remarked that, he came up against a really, really good side in Dublin. And as we all know, lads, it's a tough venue to go down and get a result down in Ennis. And look, we've seen time and time again, they were in pole position. And it's saying to the Dalo on the radio Sunday, what is it with Tony Kelly? He just loves that last quarter in Ennis, where he just comes. It's like, you can nearly call it Kelly time, like, and he just pops up with.
Did you see his goal, that last goal at the end, where he gets the ball, I know, in space, but he has a man in front of him, and then Meehan, the corner forward, is inside with his man, and his man, when Tony Kelly turns inside, Meehan's man goes, and if you watch it, Meehan doesn't even look for the pass. Usually a corner forward is roaring as their hand up, popping the ball. Meehan is just standing there. He's like, he doesn't need to pass this ball to me at all. They have a love, and even the players, you can actually sense it when you play against Clare and Tony Kelly. It's kind of this weird thing where if he's coming off the shoulder at all or anywhere on the field, not one Clare player ever thinks twice, ever, about giving him the ball and popping him the ball. And so why wouldn't they? Like, you know what I mean? He's their god, really, like, you know, and he's their greatest player of all time, and maybe some people would say the greatest player of all time. But what a player, what a man. 1-3 from Clare the other day when he didn't even start. He didn't score till late in the first half. And as John said, then that's a real sign of a great player, John, isn't it? When a fella comes alive in the last 15 minutes when it's championship rounds there.
Go on, Mull. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what the top players do, Pat. You know, I mean, and you can't. It's very hard to keep, particularly in the modern game. It's very hard to keep, the creme de la creme players quiet for 73, 70, 74 minutes.
Can't keep a good man down, Mull.
No, but I remember Nicky Cashin saying it to me, like, you know, I used to be kind of beating myself up. I want to get on the ball. And he said, no, and he said, you'll get your period. You'll get your 5-10 minutes. And even if you're out of the match, you'll get your 5-10 minutes. And it's what you can do in those 5-10 minutes. And Kelly just has that in his armour. Like, he can win. I mean, you've seen him in the All-Ireland final 2 years ago. I mean, as Pat just touched on there, he could be out of the match, and then in a 5-10 minute period, he can go and win you the match, or he can go and murder the opposition.
It's a thing that frustrates me sometimes when people talk about certain players, like, well, if they could only get him to hurl for 70 minutes and all this, but certain players and certain hurlers are moments players where they, their makeup, they're never involved in the game all the time. But they'll do more, obviously, if they can get that 4 or 5 possessions in a half than maybe another fella who's traditionally maybe a fella that's playing in middle eight, let's say midfield or half back line. They could be on loads of ball all day, So I just think not every player is the same, and you hear that sometimes. Yeah, well, he's in and out of the game. How often do you hear that? He's in and out of the game all the time. Like, as John said, no one's going to be in the game all the time.
Yeah.
And then when you have fellas like that, not that you give them a pass, they still have to do the work rate and all that, but they can just produce it in with that 2 or 3 possessions, or it's every player is different, That's all I say.
But you mentioned there, though, Pat, Clare know that if he's in this position, we're going to give it to him. It's a nice luxury to have. He's not going to hurl the ball up and down the pitch all day. That's not the way he plays, as you say. But if David Fitzgerald is solo forward and this man is barreling off his shoulder, you just give it to him. As you say, you don't even think twice. You know where it's going to end up, and something special is going to happen.
And when Lohan came back in, it was actually something. When I used to watch Clare, remember they had the double manager, was it Jerry
O'Connor and Donald Maloney, yeah.
Maloney. They always, because Tony obviously played midfield almost for years, and under them he always an awful lot of time played midfield. And I thought so many times, you watching a great player like him, he was too far back the field, and he was hitting in balls and passing balls. And since Lohan came in 4 or 5 years ago, he even has started to play him in the full forward end sometimes, which he'd have never played if you watched Tony up along, you know what I mean, and throughout the years of Clare. So, in fairness to Lohan, he said when you have a fella that can score like this, he should be that bit closer to goal, which I think has really suited Tony Kelly over the last few years.
Yeah, and after having a bad league kind of last year and a disappointing year all told. I know they beat Limerick in that kind of nothing game at the end, but it was a disappointing year trying to defend their All-Ireland crown. They're on the front foot now in 1B and would definitely be favourites to get back up. We just fly through the other games in 1B. Carlow had a good win over Down. Jeez, lads, when you look at the finale of the Antrim-Wexford game and you look at the Wexford team and you see Lee Chin was missing, great result for Wexford in the wind-up, and an unbelievable goal by Mark Fanning from a free in the conditions, so difficult to... It's just the benefit of having a good free taker, a good dead ball striker, when push comes to shove in that kind of big moment, really stood up there. But, you both saw the video, I'm sure, of Davy's reaction to it after. And I have to say, I'd have... various opinions about Davy, but when you look at what he brought to Wexford and you see kind of bits of jeering and stuff like that after the game, he has given Wexford their greatest moment since 1996 or 97 when they won Leinster. And I don't think I think it's very small-minded and narrow-minded and short-sighted of people to be jeering after, and he's bound to be absolutely gutted with the way the result finished up. I'll just throw it to you, Mull, they did the better hurling and they came away from Wexford Park with nothing. And are obviously aggrieved with the ball being brought up. It wasn't in a goal scoring position before it was brought up. Then it was brought up. I think it was 4 minutes of hoo-ha, and then the ball ends up in the net. Like, what a heartbreaking way to lose. And in a division where points are going to be hard got, that could really hurt Antrim down the road.
Yeah, and look, it's totally understandable, that he would feel that way after the match. The previous occasions I said, "Oh Jesus, Davey, why have you gone and done that?" But on this occasion, I think you can totally understand why he would feel that way, because they're in a commanding position. All they could do was a little bit of game management, close out the match. And I watched back the highlights on TG4 last night, and
hey boys, now I'm going to nip it in the bud here. Pat, you said TG4 already. Mull, you've said it already. Boys, it's forever known as TG Cahir. I know it might be your default. Okay. TG Cahir forevermore. Okay, continue, Mull.
Yeah, and I was looking back, and even one before that, they could have had a penalty or a free. Thought Tyler was a bit lenient towards Wexford on that occasion. Obviously, we didn't see the build up to the free getting brought forward. But you got to give great credit to Mark Fannin for nailing the semi penalty. But for Antrim to come down and after a disappointing year last year, if they were to if they went away from Wexford Park with 2 points, which they probably fully deserved last weekend, I mean, that would have really given them a pep in the step going into this weekend against Clare up in Dunloy, where they're go and have a right cracker for them. Now all of a sudden, if they were to lose to Clare, they're looking then they probably won't beat Dublin. Then you're looking at those middle 3 games then of Kildare, Down, Carlow, and you're saying, well, look, you've got to definitely get four points out of the 6 to hold on to your Division 1B status for 2027, and that's why he will be very, very disappointed. And I don't agree with arseholes coming up and jeering him like that,
and even the fact that was on video, it's like, I'm not being smart. It is someone that's bad minded, that they're just trying to get a reaction in their video. Oh, let's video this lad here and see, can we get a reaction?
Yeah, and look, just say if it just happens that he did get a reaction, and the GA will be looking on at this saying, well, look, lads, what we can't have is supporters going in on top of players or managers if this is what's going to play out. And they might say, well, look, we're going to have to restrict this going forward for the remainder of the league. And we don't want that, because we want the kids coming onto the pitch and interacting with their heroes, getting the autographs, getting their hurley signed. So we don't want to take that away. But when you have dopes or arseholes like that coming on and jeering a manager, when he's fully right to be upset in how the game played out.
Yeah, and that's
it's not nice to see,
and that's right in the moments after a game. You've played games, you have, Pat, as well. I have as well, and even been on the line in games. Like, you're up to high dough once the whistle is gone. Like, you could do or say anything. Do you know what I mean? Like, because it's just so much emotion flying around. So I would definitely be agreeing with you there, Mull, because we have something great where fans can come on and talk to players and get stuff signed and managers or whatever. And we're really kind of putting that stuff in jeopardy by that kind of thing. Like, he didn't get a reaction, but he easily could have had. You know what I mean? You're shoving a camera in someone's face, basically looking for them to do something, basically, which I thought was poor now. But just quickly, Pat, obviously Kildare didn't play in 1B. It'd be interesting to see them this weekend stepping up in grade. And your own county, Pat, Limerick didn't play in 1A. They play Waterford. They go down to Walsh Park at the weekend. Just briefly, what are you expecting from Limerick this year? Obviously 2 years without an All-Ireland. Would it be a lot of change? Who do you expect to play centre back? What young faces are we going to see in? Is Kylie going to rip up the script a small bit? What are you expecting from Limerick? And Mull was messing at the start as well, but even Seamus Flanagan not being involved was a bit of a statement from Kylie. The floor is yours, Pat.
Yeah, jeez, where do I start there? No, look, to be honest, people in Limerick supporters, obviously you'll have this crack the team always, you're not to know that, but at the same time, you say that when you're going for 5 in a row, and it was completely, there was no ill will. Last year, of course, it was disappointing the way it finished up, like 2024, you know, we didn't make it back to the final. And 2025, we didn't even make it back to the semi-final to try and make up. So whether you're glass half full or half empty, you could start painting this both ways. You know, you'll have people that'll start saying, look, they're on the decline, they're coming down, an aging team, lots of miles. Like I said, couldn't get over Dublin last year with an extra man. All this. I'm more of a glass half full. I'm obviously predicting and hoping that they have a really good year. Now, they have a really tough draw in Munster as well. They have a bye the first week, so you'll have two teams that have points on the board. Then you're away to Cork. Then you're away to Clare. And then you have Waterford, and then you have All-Ireland champions Tipp coming in the last round. So that's as hard as it could be, I think, personally, having the bye first.
That is a doozy of a start now, isn't it?
That is a really, really hard start, you know, really, really hard. But I will say, like, you know, fellas don't lose class overnight or hurling ability. I still think there's loads of hurling there. I still think fellas aren't that old by any means, even though they have done a lot. If anything, they should be almost refreshed this year. Last year was a poor year. There's no point hiding away from that. It wasn't even like Cork, where Cork had a poor half against Tipp. You know, they won the league and won the Munster. We won, I think it was between league and championship, I think it was 4 out of 12 games. You know, now we nearly won a Munster title too in that sense. We just got pipped on penalties, but there's a lot done. But a lot has already started in some sense. Now, some of the names I'm going to say out, you'll say, but they're playing a while. But they're not really. Like Colin Coughlin started his first game last year. Adam English started his first game last year. Shane O'Brien started his first game last year. Aidan O'Connor started his first game last year in the Munster final. You know, you'd be hoping Cathal O'Neill, who kind of got stop start, I know he's there good for years, but still, you know, you'd be hoping he could come in and cement a place somewhere along the field. You'd be hoping them lads would maybe be the ones now that, as John mentioned about fellas coming into the game like a Tony Kelly, and that's it, you know, not putting as much pressure on that, but you'll be hoping they're the ones that would stand up, maybe, you know, and taking on that extra bit, not to be relying on Keane Lynch to do it, or Kyle Hayes, or, you know, or Aaron Gillan, or fellas that are there that long. So, look, we're hoping in Limerick that we're definitely not saying that this is the last year like that, but you're just hoping that, look, this is a big, big year. And there's a bit of pressure now, which might be no harm, because, you know, sometimes pressure brings out the best in some fellas, and I think it will do that to Limerick. But a really, really, really hard draw in Munster. If we get out of Munster, whether it's his first, second, or third, we'll be absolutely delighted. But we just have to try and get back to how good we were going maybe 2 years ago, in terms of, can we get our forwards scoring more? Could we get more faster ball into the forward? Maybe, you know, hurling changes very fast. We saw that last year. Cork changed to long ball, and it was going really, really well for 2 years. Goals galore, you know, almost like John style. Brian Hayes inside, Connolly, you know, almost like Dan Shannon and Mullane inside. Fast ball in. If they get enough fast ball in coming in, the opportunity for goals is massive. Whether Limerick management will do that or not, I'm not sure, because it changes so fast in the year. Where Cork were doing that, and then Tipperary come out in the All-Ireland final and play a sweeper. And what's a sweeper so perfect to play against that style of hurling? You know, where people are going long because you have an extra man. So would you say you're definitely convinced of who would win the All-Ireland in terms of what I think Limerick will win the All-Ireland? I don't know. I think there's definitely 4 teams that could lay a claim to winning All-Ireland, and you wouldn't be surprised if any of the 4 won it. And to be honest, I think that's the 4 in Munster, with Kilkenny just coming in behind, outside of Waterford, Limerick, Tipp, Cork and Clare. So look, massive year ahead for Limerick. I think you said about 6. William O'Donoghue went back there recently. I think I could see William O'Donoghue being there. Okay. Personally, I know he was there in the first round last year. Went back to midfield. I could just see William O'Donoghue being there.
Very safe pair of hands.
Yeah. Big year though. Big year for all these fellas now. Big year. Huge year.
Mull, how would you rate Pat's debut?
I'd give him a 9.5 out of 10. Very top class performance.
You don't want to give him 10 out of 10. You don't want to give him 10 out of 10.
No. Because you want to leave a little bit for the next week. You know what I mean? You know, but top class performance. Yeah, absolutely. He'll fit in. He'll be a dream fit in. You know?
That's the job. The seamless transition. We were in transition there for a while, but I think the transition has been moved along pretty quickly.
You're having a Christmas party this year, Mullane. Mike said it's a big Christmas.
Well, we're organising it. We missed out on it last year now, so I have it. I'm sowing the seeds, Pat. I'm sowing the seeds that we have to have a Christmas party.
How about Norbert's below?
So you've picked a good time to come. You're still feeding those Delasal lads up there again this year, are you, Pat?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, back up again. Thank God. Yeah.
You're over the heartbreak of the county final loss. Are you still kind of?
Yeah, should look fierce disappointing, especially when you're up 3 points heading into the 60th minute. It can be fierce disappointing. But then, you know, Conor Boylan steps up and produces kind of a magic 1 in a million moment where he got a goal that one, you know, just from their point of view, one of the best goals you'd ever see, and just, you know, he just rose high out of the sky and put it into the net and went extra time, and they had momentum then and carried on. But look, what can you do? Only dust yourself off and
Last
get
week
back on it.
we always struggled to do the back to back, but there was an old saying of a friend of mine, Barry Murphy, was always saying 2 out of 3 ain't bad. So, if you can get the two out of the 3 this year, now it'll be okay. 2 within 3 years,
I think someone more famous than Barry Murphy might have said 2 out of 3 and bad, but Barry Murphy said it as well, I'd say. But lads,
We thought, John, we thought you were going to give us a few words for advice last year. We were down in Delisle one day doing a bit of training, and we seen John, and the fella said, Jesus, John might come into the dressing room here, and he never appeared in. And then we were heading for a few pints of water that evening. We said, he might come into Orbits now later on, but he never appeared. Next time.
Jesus, you had Owen Murphy down there that day. Jesus, the young fella went over and got his picture taken with Owen Murphy. And the young fella's only 6 at the time, and he says to Owen Murphy, why didn't you save Owen O'Sheen O'Donoghue's goal? So what? 6-year-old. Why did you save O'Sheen O'Donoghue's goal? I was kind of like, Murph, Jesus Christ.
you cannot beat how unfiltered a child's thoughts are.
Oh, stop.
Daddy, why did you miss that free? Or whatever it is. It's hard baited. Lads, super stuff. Great to have the leagues back. Great to have a 3-man team and discussing all the action. And we will talk soon, men. Thanks a million, boys.